Guy Joseph.
Life in Saint Lucia is not what it was like a few years ago. We have seen some major changes from the pandemic that really hit us, where the economy was affected at the time. But we were in government at the time, and we were able to keep things going. The level of criminal activity on the island is unprecedented. I think the murder rate is the highest it has ever been. The unfortunate thing is the Prime Minister is the Minister for Security. And when he was questioned about this, he said, look, I'm not a policeman. My father was a police. So in essence, the Prime Minister, who's the Minister of Security, was saying, look, don't ask me why this is happening, because I'm not the one who is the policeman.
Hey, it's Rajan Nazwan here. One small request before you get to the video. Please subscribe and join our growing community. I really hope you enjoy the session. Back to the show. Now, as you will always remember, we always take on discussions right the way across the globe. And as part of a network growing our influences in over 48 countries, we are provided support from our ambassadors globally, from former heads of states, ministers, CEOs to entrepreneurs right the way across the planet. Now, many of you remember we've covered a lot about the Caribbean in the past, and our ambassador there, including that from Saint Lucia, is Guy Joseph. At the time he was last on the show, he was a minister for economic planning and much more within the nation. Now he finds himself at the precipice of huge change within the nation, a country that he calls home, and more importantly, a nation that has allowed him to take the legal process to the next stage. So without further ado, it is my pleasure and deep privilege to reintroduce you to our ambassador in St. Lucia, Honourable Guy Joseph. Guy, it's lovely to have you back on the show.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be with you once again. I have to compliment you on the great work you are doing. And there are so many followers, and the messages that are being brought across, they are so applicable for our time and in helping to shape a better world.
And I appreciate that. And I think that vice of shaping a better world has been something that you've been directed your entire life's work towards. Obviously, as a former minister within the nation and now being a high-profile member of a new party within the country, you almost walk those custodian steps for reshaping what national identity means. Guy, St. Lucia's changed a lot over the last couple of years, from a nation that was once recognized as being the honeymoon destination of the globe. It had the sun, sea, sand, and people that really generated international interest. In the last couple of years, we've seen it now becoming known within the British tabloids as an epicenter, unfortunately, of murder, of cocaine routes, of seeing high criminal gangs going through the streets of Castries. Elephant in the room, Guy, what on earth is happening to your country?
Well, to be honest, we still won #1 honeymoon destination this year, but life in Saint Lucia is not what it was like a few years ago. I think we have seen some major changes from the pandemic that really hit us, where the economy was affected at the time. But we were in government at the time, and we were able to keep things going. What we did was, when tourism died down as a result of the pandemic, we embarked on a program of infrastructure. As someone would put it, you don't waste a crisis. So we use the crisis situation to help improve the general infrastructure in St. Lucia in terms of the road network, the areas of shortages of water. We addressed a lot of these concerns. We were at the time rebuilding a new airport terminal. We were working on setting up a cruise port in Viewfort to do home porting. And a number of other projects. We embarked on the building of a new hospital in the south of the island, and many other projects, community projects, where people got employment. So the impact of COVID was not really as detrimental on the working population as it could have been had the government not embarked on such a program. You would know that Saint Lucia is in, I wouldn't say close proximity, but relevant to where Venezuela is located. It is not a very good speedboat within 5 to 7 hours would take you from Venezuela straight to Saint Lucia. And I think the problems that we are seeing with the proliferation of criminal activity on the island would have a lot to do with what is happening in neighboring places within the region. And I'm talking about especially what has happened in Venezuela as far as it relates to the standard of living, the governance over there, and the level of criminal activity. And we believe that Saint Lucia is being used as a transshipment point, or a point between there and getting to the northern part of the Caribbean. Now, when we were in government, or when we assumed government, most of the government or the marine police boats were not working. We had established a radar system that could pick up any vessel underwater. That had gone down. We got all of these things operational. But what we have seen is that we are back to square one with the new government. We don't know that the radar system is working. We don't know. And we had also introduced some restrictions where we had enforced visa requirements for Venezuelans coming to Saint Lucia. The new government removed all of these restrictions that were put in place, or measures that you could better police what was happening in Saint Lucia. And we believe that this has contributed to the level of criminal activity that we are seeing, the illegal guns that are on the streets in Saint Lucia, and just the general activity that is not what we desire for Saint Lucia, because the level of criminal activity on the island is unprecedented. I think the murder rate is the highest it has ever been. The unfortunate thing is the Prime Minister is the Minister for Security. And when he was questioned about this, he said, look, I'm not a policeman. My father was a police. So in essence, the Prime Minister, who's the Minister of Security, was saying, look, don't ask me why this is happening, because I'm not the one who is the policeman. It was my father. And that was very discouraging for a lot of people in St. Lucia to hear a comment like this from the Prime Minister.
Well, they always say the fish rots from the head. And unfortunately, when you have a look at where St. Lucia's been in the last couple of years, we've seen some real key changes that haven't awarded the country, or neither its population, the best opportunities forward. Now, I'm going to cite a few examples here. We can see where the nation's going in terms of its tourism capacity. We've seen what's been happening when it comes to infrastructure developments. There's a named hospital that's involved there, and also some of the comments coming from the US as well as key stakeholders. But pushing that aside, which are very serious issues facing local citizens, there seems to be a rise of additional hate there. Now, I've come across footage in St. Lucia where you had members of the Parliament, of the current administration, making remarks that sounded slightly ethnically biased. i.e. the people who should be in power should be of a certain ethnicity, and those who are belonging to a different ethnicity shouldn't be there. What have you got to say about this, Guy? Because I've spent a lot of time in St. Lucia, and never before in my history or my time being on the island have I ever seen them coming forward.
Yes, it is very unfortunate what has happened and what is being perpetuated by the present government. There's an atmosphere of hate and racism being perpetuated by the present government, which is very unfortunate. St. Lucia has never had issues with race or ethnicity as long as I know myself growing up in St. Lucia. I never felt that I was any less of a St. Lucian being of Indian descent. But I mean, one of the most recent comments that I read after I tackled the government on the high price of fuel was that, I should be shipped back to India, and then the leader of the party, who was the former prime minister, should be dropped off in Matnik on my route to India. And we never saw that. We heard the prime minister himself making racial, I would call it racial comments, where he's saying, well, look, you have the choice to vote for a black man or for a white man. Things of that nature are very detrimental to the stability and the peace that we've enjoyed and the neighborly way of living of everybody in St. Lucia. And a lot of this is happening against the backdrop that the government is not performing economically. So what they do whenever their performance is below par is to begin to attack people personally. So the political leader has been attacked because for health reasons, he was born in Matnik. There were issues because our health system is not up to a first world standard, and Matnik has a very good hospital, so there were some complications. But he has lived the better part of his life in St. Lucia, growing up in St. Lucia, going to school overseas. Even there was an attempt to go and change the legislation in the parliament. There were discussions. A minister of government who usually goes on television and attacks people in St. Lucia, makes threats at people. He recently indicated that he was collecting files on individuals and he was being fed with information from the police. So you find that the government is trying to govern in fear. They are putting fear among the people that if you say anything against the government, if you speak out, you are going to get attacked. We've seen a lot of women being attacked verbally on television by a talk show host who is a minister in the prime minister's office. And the level of criminal activity, we believe, begins within the government. And that is why it is so difficult to control what is happening. Because this same minister we are talking about, his visa was revoked by the US government. He was cited as somebody who was under observation for money laundering and drug trafficking and all of these things. And the prime minister made him a minister in the prime minister's
And these are
office.
very serious allegations as well, to the degree that the US showcased concern when the said minister was actually brought into Parliament. But he's not alone, though. It seems that there's a whole repertoire of individuals in the current administration that have got questionable passes behind them. You mentioned about
you would know, if you would know, there's one of the ministers who was involved in a project in St. Lucia that used UK funds, pensioners' funds in the UK. The project went belly up, never really got off the ground. And we don't know what has happened with these investments that was made up to now. We have another minister in the government who was involved in getting a vehicle purchased at the British High Commission.
Yeah.
And then the Prime Minister went to court, and the Prime Minister said, when the case was being heard, as soon as our party lost the elections, the Attorney General, who was the lawyer for the individual in question, had the case dropped. So they changed the Comptroller of Customs, went in and got the case dismissed. And the Prime Minister himself was present in court. And he said he went to court to see that justice was done. And then the people of the country, we are now asking, so you went to court to see justice was done on behalf of one of your ministers. Does that mean we should have no confidence in the justice system in St. Lucia if the Prime Minister does not interfere? Yet still the judiciary has remained quiet on this matter. The Bar Association has remained quiet. So there are lots of irregularities happening with this government in St. Lucia, and people are very concerned about where things are heading.
Do you feel that the court systems of St. Lucia, within your own experience, is being utilized by the current administration to calm dissent? Because I know you won a case recently, had to go all the way down to the CCJ to fight it. But locally, yes, it seemed that the silence from the legal system was deafening. Are the courts, is the legal system being utilized by the current administration to stop the voices rising up against them?
I definitely believe so, and I can cite a prime example. Most recently, the leader of the opposition, Honorable Alan Chasney, who is the political leader for the party that I belong to, the United Workers' Party, he had about 3 cases in court. And the judge that was sitting on the cases reclused himself from sitting on the case, citing political interference as his reason for removing himself from the one to adjudicate on these matters. What we found strange was that after the judge reclused himself from the case, he was transferred to Grenada. And he is a St. Lucian, and he was presiding in the court in St. Lucia. So we are very, very concerned about the manner in which cases are being handled. And if a judge himself will feel that there is political interference to the point where he would have to recluse himself from adjudicating on a matter or on about 3 different matters, then this is cause for serious concern about what is happening to the democracy in St. Lucia. And coming to my own matter, I could not understand. So let me put some things in perspective. We believe that before we move from the Privy Council to go to the CCJ, that there should have been a referendum. The government, having more than a 2/3 majority in the parliament, proceeded immediately to just join with the CCJ without any engagement of the people of St. Lucia or indicating through a referendum whether people felt that they were ready to go to the CCJ as opposed to the Privy Council that we have used over the years from independence to now. So we've had that concern, but in my matter, as an example, I brought in a lawsuit against a media house for carrying out a story. I wrote to them, explaining to them that the information they had was incorrect, and that if they did not take the appropriate action, I would have to sue them. The reporter in question said the only thing I could sue him with was Bounty rum, which is a rum that is produced and sold in Saint Lucia. That is how defiant the media house was, despite being aware that the story was a false story.
But was this a truly independent media house, or is it a media house that has ties with the administration?
Very strong ties with the administration. In fact, all of the attacks on persons by the minister in the government happens on that particular media house. And there have been many lawsuits, and none of them are really getting through. It's a drag on adjournment, and no decision is being made, because it appears to us that even some of the judges who sit on these cases are afraid of making a judgment on these matters. So let me give you a quick rundown of my situation. When my matter was brought in, there were 3 hearings with the court, and then they sent it to mediation. In mediation, we came to an agreement. During that time, I was still part of the government. I was a minister. And so it went to mediation. We came to an agreement at mediation, but then the elections came and the mediation agreement had not been signed. So the media house owner refused to sign once we lost the elections. And the next thing I knew, the case was dismissed. I was not even called to court. When the matter was dismissed, I said, but I don't understand. And it was the judge who dismissed it, I understood, said it was dismissed on the basis that we did not serve properly. I said, but how if we did not serve properly? A defense was put in. There were 3 sessions in court, and there were a couple sessions of mediation. And only at that point in time, when the government changes, that's when you are telling me, well, we did not serve.
There's inconsistencies there, absolutely.
Yes. So what we did was we appealed to the OECS court. We won the case at the OECS, where the 3 judges that sat at the OECS Court of Appeal agreed with us that service was deemed proper and that the case should go on. The party involved appealed to the CCJ to get the matter thrown out again. We did object to the CCJ sitting on the matter, or the judges at the CCJ, on the basis that the lawyer for the firm that was involved, the lawyer that took the matter to the CCJ on behalf of the television station, NBC, that's McDowell Broadcasting Corporation, that he was one involved in the selection of judges to sit on the CCJ. So we felt that we could not get justice in this matter.
There's an absolute bias there, isn't there?
So the judges they responded and gave us the assurance that there would be no such thing as what we were concerned about. And the matter went to the CCJ. My lawyer represented me very well. And then we got a judgment 2 Fridays back that we had won the case and costs had been awarded to me.
How much money?
The matter of winning the case, all of this is just to get the matter to go to court, you know. That's not the actual case. All that has happened is to facilitate the matter being heard in court. Now, the point I want to make is justice, you have to have an inordinate amount of resources to be able to get basic justice in Saint Lucia. Can you imagine a simple case of defamation like this, which is a straightforward matter. All the evidence is there that the company they were claiming that was set up, just a simple check at the company's registry would see who are the owners of the company.
Guy, how much has the government spent at a time of austerity, at a time where the average Saint Lucian is trying to find work, meaningful employment, and they're suffering immensely? How much has this current administration spent on taking legal suits against your party?
They are spending quite a bit of resources. I mean, most recently, even in the parliament, really what they did was they made a decision, the speaker, to evict the member for Mikud South, which is the leader of the opposition, to put him out of the parliament indefinitely, which is totally contrary to the rules of parliament.
Democracy. So if I am to get this correct, you've got a country where you have individuals who are being brought in under ministerial posts, and in some cases even as permanent secretaries who do not belong there. You've got a country where the US and all your key stakeholders have showcased interest and actively tried to engage with the government, saying you need to make different choices in regards to the people that you have there. So therefore, it's also about your branding as a country. You've got a country where we see now an increase in violence, in gangs, in ammunitions, drug routes coming through. We've seen a country now that also, on top of that, the rule of law isn't being appealed to and is being utilized by the current administration from all states they provided evidence for. And you got a country right now that is tinkering over nearly the abyss of economic failure. Guy, can this nation of St. Lucia be saved? What has to happen in order for things to change around? Because we often see after elections, a new administration will come in, they take their time to get things moving, and then they make these wild, big promises of everlasting change that people can sail into the sunset. But in the case of St. Lucia, it seems that the dream has turned into an absolute nightmare. Can it change, or is it too late?
That is our biggest fear for where St. Lucia is heading. This government, this present government, and as I was highlighting, imagine the leader of the opposition had to take the matter to court, take the parliament to court in order to get his right to sit in the parliament of St. Lucia. Now, can you imagine how much that is costing to have all of these cases? Because initially, even if the court is going to award you cost, you have to have the initial resources to be able to take the matter to court. And that is why so many people in St. Lucia are quiet about what is happening. People, what we see in the making there is the making of a dictatorship in St. Lucia, where the media is being controlled. Almost everybody who was working in the media have now landed a job in the government. In the Prime Minister's office is an individual who was in court for a bomb scare.
So, sorry, you said an individual who's in court for a bomb scare?
Who was in court for a bomb scare at the airport in St. Lucia is now a press person in the Prime Minister's office. Another individual who had been to prison, made a lot of allegations about us when we were in government. Even while he's in the Ministry of Infrastructure as the PR person, made a threat, a recorded threat to kill somebody on his phone, and that message was circulated all around. And not a single step has been taken to address this, not a statement from the government about any of these things. So it is really, the situation is very tense in Saint Lucia. The opposition is under a lot of threat. There's a lot being done to silence the opposition in Saint Lucia. It is just that a few of us, we brave the situation and we are able to do the things that we believe is better for Saint Lucia. Now, you did ask whether Saint Lucia things can turn around. I believe the people of Saint Lucia have realized that they have made a mistake in the way they voted the last election. Economically, the country is not performing. Inflation is at an all-time high. Fuel prices are crazy in St. Lucia. Fuel went to $17.95, and now it is at about $16.50 a gallon of fuel in St. Lucia. And our prices are supposed to change every 21 days. We have not seen this happening. We've lost most of the flights that we had coming into St. Lucia. So flying from the US, the prices are through the roof now because of the number of flights that we've lost. So the government practically has lost its way in government.
And I personally know of many big businesses in St. Lucia who are tentering on the ideas of leaving the country because they're worried about where the future may hold. It's not sustainable for them. So you've also got problems with the private sector who seem to no longer have the faith within the nation to move ahead with. These are some real deep economic challenges, God.
They are. Unemployment is at an all-time high. And you know, the sad part of it is that the government does not recognize any of these as a problem. The government, in fact, most recently, the Prime Minister told the people of the country they need to stop complaining and start looking at the cup as half full rather than half empty. And we're talking about food prices at a rate where people cannot afford. The price of bread almost doubled. A loaf of bread went from 25 cents to 45 cents. The bus fares increased for public transport. Food prices are through the roof. And all of this has happened with no increase in salaries for the people and less employment. So it is really a difficult situation. I can tell you, I meet many families who have to choose which 2 meals they are going to eat for the day, because generally some families cannot afford 3 square meals for the day. Now, at the end of the day, people, those who can afford can get by, but there are really people struggling and feeling the full impact of this economic crisis that has hit this country under this administration.
To wrap up, you've got the ears of world leaders across the planet right now. You got all the big business owners across the Caribbean as well as internationally, all the guys who have access to LLCs, as well as many high commissioners and ambassadors globally. Guy, what is your message to them about what they need to know about St. Lucia? And more importantly, what you feel that they can be doing to support St. Lucia in terms of creating a better democracy and ensuring that the lives of those people are going to increase and get better over time as well?
Well, what we've been doing is, as an opposition, we've been trying to reach out to all the international organizations that support democracy. Because the threat we are seeing happening you can easily become a one-party state. If an opposition decides that, look here, there's too much at stake. If your life, your family, I mean, every member of my family that could be attacked has been attacked by the government. They go to all lengths to make sure anybody who speaks out becomes a victim of abuse. People are fearful of victimization, and the level of victimization that we are seeing is one that is unprecedented in St. Lucia, where once you voice your concern about what the government is doing, even their own supporters who would speak out against some of the things that they are doing get victimized. Far less for persons who support the United Workers' Party as the opposition party. Most recently, we had a major protest march. We've been having town hall meetings. And there are people outside of Saint Lucia. There are people in the diaspora who say, look here, I am going to support behind the scenes, but I don't even want them to know that I'm supporting you for fear that they victimize my family in Saint Lucia. So even people in the diaspora are afraid of the government when it comes to victimization. So it's a very tense situation, coupled with the high crime and the cost of living, which is beyond most of the average St. Lucians. So there are lots of problems. We have seen a major decline in our main revenue earner, which is tourism. The US numbers were down 36% compared to last year. That is more than 1/3, and the US is our biggest market, followed by the UK and then the Caribbean. So we are feeling the pressures. The cruise sector, every day you hear of another cancellation. So even the ships that were scheduled to come in have not been coming in on a regular basis as they used to. So here we are, we've not even recovered from COVID, and we have all of these economic pressures coupled by the high taxes that have been imposed by the government. Because we had reduced VAT to 12.5%. The government came in and increased, putting an environmental and security level, a levy for health and security. But yet still we did not see any corresponding change in the allocations to health and security in the budget. So we have developed what we believe there's tax gouging in St. Lucia. The government is overtaxing us on fuel, overtaxing us with the levy. They said that is the 2.5% levy, which is supposed to be for health and security. Yet still there is no such thing as an increase in the budget for health and security. If you total what was there previous to the tax for health and security, you would see that it's the same amount.
It's shocking. It seems to me that St. Lucia is no longer about the politics for politics' sake, but is really about getting together for the survival of the country, for its people, and to preserve future generations. Guy, as always, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. And I look forward to having your conversations recorded for future sessions as well.
Well, in St. Lucia, the government's mandate is protecting the victory. That is what they are doing. So anything or anyone that appears to be a threat to protecting the victory would become a victim. And St. Lucia needs help, serious help from democratic organizations around the world, because democracy is under threat in St. Lucia. We see the judiciary being questioned about what is happening. We see the Bar Association. We see some new laws being introduced in St. Lucia that we are very concerned about the direction that the country is going. We saw the Prime Minister of Grenada come to St. Lucia and advocating that they should vote for a St. Lucian Prime Minister, as if indicating that the leader of the opposition is not a St. Lucian. And so what we see happening, we have many reasons to be concerned about it. And as an opposition, We will continue to do what we have to do to protect the democracy of Saint Lucia, because we cannot afford to have a set of people who wants to be dictators, who would love to see a one-party state in operation. So that is why there is so much attack on opposition and so much victimization. I can tell you, people, the business people are fearful to speak out, the lawyers are fearful, the doctors are fearful. I mean, the country is gripped by fear of a government that everybody sees as a government that once you express one sentence, one word against this government, you will become a victim of their attacks.
Powerful words there. Guy, Joseph, it's lovely to have you on the show. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being with you, and I look forward to us chatting. I can still tell you there is hope for us in Saint Lucia. We, as the opposition, will continue to advocate and be the voice for the marginal people in Saint Lucia who cannot speak for themselves. We will continue to speak for them. If I may add just one thing before we close, we are very concerned about the situation that has developed between Venezuela and Guyana. And it is unfortunate that our government is not taking a very proactive stand against it, because, you know, here we have a situation where the government is saying, well, Venezuela is our friend, and so is Guyana. So it's almost as if the government wants to take a neutral position, which is far from the reality. In fact, I put it this way. You have two brothers, or you have a brother who's been attacked by a neighbor, and the other brother is going to stand by and say, well, look, the neighbor is my friend, you are my brother, but I'm not going to get too involved because I don't want to offend one or the other. Guyana is a part of CARICOM, and I believe by now the entire CARICOM should have made one definitive statement to Venezuela, is that you touch one, you touch all.
Is it the case, though, Guy? I'm just thinking out loud. If you have a prime minister of Grenada coming over and saying you need to vote for Saint Lucia, indicating that even though the leader of the opposition is a Saint Lucian, was a leader of a nation, and those people like yourself are proudly Saint Lucian, is it the case that things are now just becoming skin deep? The fact that Guyana, with the likes of President Finale or Vice President Barajagdeo, that they're standing up against the might of Venezuela. But is it the case that the CARICOM countries such as Saint Lucia aren't supporting purely based on what they think is ethnically right? It may be a wild accusation, but looking at what you've been through and what either the opposition's going through, it wouldn't be a far-fetched idea.
Well, I would think Maduro is not much different. So I think that the support for Maduro and what is happening in Venezuela tells you where the head of the government is. If you can support a country with all of these resources, having its people in such misery, then it tells you the mindset of the present government in Saint Lucia. What do we want to assure the people as an opposition party? And we've taken a stand against Venezuela, or to stand for what is right. It's not necessarily a stand against Venezuela. If Venezuela is doing something that is unjust, the international court has ruled, and the dispute over the Essequibo region in Guyana, we cannot sit by and allow Venezuela to come and claim almost 2/3 of the Essequibo region as belonging to them when these decisions have been settled. And it's not the resources that are available in Venezuela. They have so much oil reserves. Look at what they have done. You think as if they get more oil that it's going to make a difference to them. So I believe that the stability of the region is being threatened. If there is an all-out attack by Venezuela in Guyana, then the whole region is going to be drawn into this. It's no longer a safe and peaceful zone or part of the world as we would know it. And that is why I believe that a strong message should be sent to Venezuela that the entire CARICOM region would not support any move by Venezuela. But we are getting mixed signals, at least from Saint Lucia, in that people don't want to be forthright in calling wrong. And I believe that given the instability we have seen with China and not China, Russia and Ukraine, and what is happening in Israel and Palestine and all of the world can do without this instability, especially in our region. And while I believe every diplomatic means should be used, I believe that the people of Guyana need to be able to have that peace of mind that they can exist as they have existed. Guyana went through its troubles over its financial situation. And now that we are seeing a slight improvement or a major improvement in the life of the people of Guyana, for this level of instability to come upon them as a result of a neighboring nation is totally unacceptable. And that is why I believe that for us in Saint Lucia, we have a lot of Guyanese who live in Saint Lucia, who have businesses in Saint Lucia, that a stronger message should be sent from our government to the Maduro government to let them know that in no uncertain terms will we support or stand on the sidelines or not send a definitive message that even if you are my friend, if you are wrong,
I think the issue here, though, Guy, is that we place a great reliance on the integrity and knowledge of those who decide to lead. In this case, you're dealing with the government from all intent purposes of what you mentioned, do not have either integrity or intelligence to be able to make the right decisions. So it's only up until the next elections that the right things can be done. But on that note, Guy, it is, as always, a pleasure to have you on the show. I'm sure we're going to be speaking much more with you in the future.
Thank you very much. Pleasure chatting with you.
More than welcome.
The unfortunate thing